Get ready for a no BS approach to health and fitness. This is NBS Fitness Radio.
All right, what's up? We're back with NBS Fitness Radio. We are here with Clay Jones from 901 PT.
Hello.
Clay and his team over there help a lot of our clients and our athletes recover from injuries, and they've really established themselves as kind of like the go-to place in our area, Memphis.
Wow, thank you.
For people who are serious about their fitness and want to recover and get back to a high level of performance. So, welcome to the show, Clay.
Man, thank you. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me. And y'all have got an awesome thing going on too here at NBS Fitness.
Thanks, bud. Give me kind of your background and kind of what led you to where you are today.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm from Memphis, born and raised, 901, hence our name, 901 PT. I'm so excited about that. Yeah, so I'm a physical therapist, doctor of physical therapy. I graduated PT school here in 2008, went to University of Tennessee, Memphis, and went immediately out to Seattle to do a sports medicine kind of specialty. It was a residency and fellowship out there where I learned from some amazing people and was in a practice similar kind of to what I've started now. And when I came back to Memphis, I've worked at a few different clinics and have enjoyed the different places I've been at. I've worked at Camel Clinic, a place called Results, all good spots that I really enjoy. But after doing that for about a decade, 3 years ago, I decided that I kind of want to do my own thing. And for different reasons. For one, I've got 4 kids, and I wanted to have a clinic that kind of met my schedule better.
Yeah.
Because I was having to miss soccer games and things like that. So that was one big reason. But another big reason, I wanted to provide more specific treatment, more one-on-one kind of concierge, if you will.
Right.
And also I saw this need for, as you already alluded to, treating the active individual, people who really enjoy pushing themselves. And in my practice or my experience in healthcare, a lot of times people just were told, pushing yourself is bad, running is bad, lifting weights is bad for you. And so that just really started to kind of get to me. And I wanted to, though I really appreciated everybody I was working with and I enjoyed the people, I felt like the system was really not conducive for how I felt like people could really get taken care of. So in my background, again, it's sports medicine. It's treating anything from back issues to neck issues to ankle, whatever it is. And I do a lot of hands-on treatment. And so my skills are really best suited if I can really focus on one person and then really work them back into a high-level activity. And in the system that I was at, you kind of had to, once someone kind of got a little bit better because of insurance and stuff like that and different just how the system works, you have to kind of get rid of them. They have to kind of figure out how to really progress on their own.
Yeah.
And so different things like that really led me to want to start my business. And so I did that 3 years ago here in Memphis. Started going to people's homes, had a little table in my car, and I would do that before and after work hours, and it was going well. So I was able to quit my other job and start my own thing. And pretty soon after that, I hired another therapist. And my wife, Emily, she runs the business with me. She's the real brains behind everything. And then since then, our company's grown, and we have an office manager. I have 4 other PTs now, and we're on Broad Avenue, and just, kicking butt. It's a dream come true for me.
That's awesome, man. As a fellow fitness and health entrepreneur, I give you a thumbs up, man.
Yeah, really scary.
It's super scary, super rewarding.
Yes.
Fun, exciting, all that stuff. And kudos to doing it with your wife. That's awesome, too.
Oh, we would not be where we were without her, so.
That's awesome.
She's awesome.
Let's talk a little bit about the system. So, and I'll kind of lay out what I see.
Yeah.
And then I'd like to hear kind of your perspective, and then kind of some of the roadblocks that the system creates, and then how you guys work around that. So, couple of things I see is, generally speaking, the system is not set up for active, healthy individuals. Mainly because that's not what the majority of the United States consists of.
Yeah.
The majority of the United States consists of people who are, inactive, unhealthy, and a lot of times not as motivated to get back to a high level of performance. Maybe motivated to get back to a level of basic performance, but not high level performance. And so the system's kind of geared to those people. And I kind of made the joke one time with a guy who had a shoulder injury, and I kind of said, you get the same protocol that an 80-year-old does.
Yeah,
I was like, your rehab protocol is the same thing that an 8-year-old,
Yeah.
who's never exercised before.
One of our phrases is, it's not your grandmother's physical therapy.
Yeah,
Though we like
perfect.
taking care of people who are older, but yeah, you're exactly right about that.
Well, right, and it's like you said, it should be tailored. It should be individualized.
And people try to, but the system sets it up where it's hard to sometimes tailor it.
Yeah. So what are those roadblocks in the system that kind of you alluded to insurance, but like what are some of those roadblocks?
It's a very convoluted, complicated thing there. Some of the roadblocks are going to be, I think that because a lot of people who are in the medical system, as you already mentioned, are not as dedicated as being active at pushing themselves. When someone who does do that, who's lifting heavy weights, who's into powerlifting, who's into ultra marathons, when they come across the healthcare provider, there's a lot of nervousness in the healthcare system about, whoa, you're going to jack yourself up.
Yeah.
And so there's these beliefs, and I would say these misconceptions, that you're overdoing it. And the reason why you're having pain is because you're doing way too much, because they're seeing a lot of people who aren't doing much stuff, and they have rotator cuff tears and disc bulges, which we can get to that later. But so when they see these people who are really push themselves, it's like, whoa, you're just going to wear yourself out quicker.
Right.
And so I think a lot of people who are highly active, for one, they know that's what they're going to get when they go, and they don't want to be told that.
Yeah. And
so they just don't go. Or you don't really get to the ins and outs of what's really going on with the pain that they might be having, injury that they've been having. And because they do have such a high level of function to get back to, that can take time, or it can take some more expertise about really helping them get back to it without being scared of trying to get someone back to a barbell or whatever it might be. And so people are more, the skill level's not there, or the ability to put the time in to help them get there is limited. And so that's a big thing. And then, as I mentioned, insurance companies, and our clinic, we deal with insurance companies, and our patients can use their insurance, but we don't have a direct contract with them. So we're an out-of-network based clinic, so we can get lost in the weeds there. But the reason why, the way we have it set up, I'm not directly contracted with an insurance company, so an insurance company doesn't tell me what I can and cannot do with my patients. And so a lot of times when we're with people, insurance company says, when you get to a certain level of function, kick them out. Yeah. We're going to stop paying for it, because now they can walk upstairs with 1 out of 10 pain, and they can sit in their chair for 30 minutes with no pain, or they can sleep through the night with no pain. And insurance like, all right, we're ready to be done with them. And they're like, well, yeah, I can do that, but I can't deadlift 300 pounds anymore. And that's what I used to be able to do before this. So what's going on? And so that can make it a challenge for insurance companies to put limits sometimes on people and not really fully take care of that person. And then after there's a time component to that. And so what I love and what I've really found over the past 3 years of our clinic is we've been able to walk with patients over time to where we go through that process with them. So we might start off with more upfront treatment because they injure their back lifting, and we see them kind of get them through that acute issue. But we can then say, all right, go do your stuff. Here's your exercises. And it's not just laying on the table and doing simple things. It's like, here's your stuff to work back into the barbell, and here's your accommodations. Go work on it for a month. Now come back and see me, and then we'll kind of get into that next level of skill that you need to develop to prevent the issue that got there in the first place. Yeah. So we can break down their form more, and we can really start to get into the weeds more, if you will.
Very cool. Yeah, I brought up a couple ideas. So one thing, one way of looking at it, I try to describe to people is if we're looking at the timeline, here's your injury. Yeah. Here's the timeline, here's your injury. And a lot of times, traditional medicine traditional system will only address what's after that injury. Right. And they won't go back and look at what caused that injury in the first place, right?
Very much so.
And so it's nice, and that's kind of thing. It's like, okay, well, your pain's gone. We're addressing the results of the injury, pain. Your pain's gone. You're good to go back. But we didn't address the cause of the injury. Right. So it's nice to hear that you guys are saying, like, hey, we do want to get you pain free, obviously, but let's also make sure that this doesn't happen again. Yeah, because one of our taglines is we want to keep you active for a lifetime. I tell my runners, I want you running till you're 90. I want you lifting weights till you drop dead. I had my mom in the clinic this morning, and she was picking up a 35-pound kettlebell deadlift. And my dad was going, can she do that? I'm like, yeah, Dad. And guess what? We're going to get her to 70 pounds here soon,
because I want people lifting for a lifetime. So when I look at a lifter, I've really got to know their history.
Yeah.
I've got whatever athlete it is, whatever sport it is, I've got to look at their history and see, well, why did that lead to it? Was it just a one-time thing? Yeah, you just you jacked yourself because it was a funky lift, and that just totally happens in athletics. But if it's something that comes on over time, or maybe there was something that led to that injury, we've really got to get into the weeds of it. And we've got to talk through their training plan. We've got to talk through their nutrition habits sometimes, their sleep. We got to talk through their recovery habits sometimes to understand, why do we keep dealing with these things? Because overall, we know that one of another favorite phrase is movement is medicine. I need you moving. So let's make sure you can do it for a long time and not just, get you through this initial injury and then kick you out the door and then hope it doesn't happen again. Because if it does happen again, then we never got into that. We never really jumped into the real issue. Then someone's going to get hurt and realize, crap, I'm just screwed. I've just got a bad back. And either one, they're either told or they believe themselves, I just got to stop being active and lifting or pushing myself. Or they say, I guess I just have to do surgery. And that's just crap. That's the system that led them to that surgery. And this is not again, I don't want to throw any healthcare professionals on the bus or surgeons, because they understand that they want the right person on the surgery table. But sometimes people, because they haven't really taken the time to do the work and figure out what really happened and then really spend the time in the process of getting better, they're going to shortchange it and say, I just gotta go straight to surgery, or I'll just get injections every 6 months, or they're told just deal with the pain as long as possible and then come back and we'll get a replacement, or a knee replacement, or whatever it might be. And I'm so thankful for those surgeries and those things that we have there with some very skilled healthcare professionals for that. But sometimes you just jump to that too soon, and
there's no going back from surgery.
Yeah, there's not. So if you can avoid it, there's just so many things you can do to avoid that. And I want to bring up a point that you mentioned. The way the system is, when someone gets injured, you look at that one moment, and then you take an image, an X-ray, an MRI, CT scan, whatever, of that one moment. Yeah. And then we make all these conclusions based on what was happening with their injury to see, okay, all this injury came from the one tear or the one MRI, or the MRI showed that this one disc bulge, and you think, we make the assumption that disc bulge or that meniscus issue came from that one injury. Right. Where a lot of times that's been there for a long time. Right. And that's not the real issue. We just have to dig a little bit deeper and figure out why that's the case. Yeah. And not just make too many assumptions. And that was probably one of the main things that got me wanting to do my own thing, was I had too many patients that I was treating that for no fault of anybody, but just the system that we put so much emphasis on an image, on an X-ray and MRI, that that became what they believed about themselves. And that was the only narrative of what was causing all their pain. And they were jumping to the surgery and not really taking the time to go through the process of really learning what's going on and telling people, man, that you don't have to have that. Yeah. A lot of us are all walking around with these things that have no pain. Yeah. So that was a big cause for me. It's I was tired of dealing with the aftermath, and I want to go back to the beginning and deal with those root issues. So.
And I find it so tough to have those conversations with people, because they kind of look at you like you're crazy. Yes. Because from a function standpoint, our idea of what is functional for human beings across their lifetime as a society is completely off. Just like your dad being can she deadlift that? So I was you should be able to deadlift your body weight at least your entire life. Right.
100%.
So having that mindset or more would be also my argument. Yep. But when someone goes into a doctor and they say you should never deadlift again, I'm well, you got to be able to pick up something at some point. Yes. I was squats are bad. Squats are bad for your knees, or I can't squat because my knees are bad. It's whoa. Yeah. The ability to squat is something you should be able to do. Yes. You're born with it. You should die with it, right? Yes. The ability to pick things up, you're born with it. You should die with it. Yeah. If there's our definition of fitness is the resistance to disease and dysfunction. So if there's dysfunction there, there's lack of fitness there, and we got to figure out what that is. But having those conversations with people sometimes is so frustrating, because you're man, I know there is a better option for you. And I think there's kind of two types of people. There's the type of person who I don't want to generalize, but there's some people who they struggle with training. They struggle with pushing themselves, and like it's almost kind of like a get out of jail free card. If when the doctor says like, "Well, you don't have to deadlift again," it's like, "Ha, I don't have to deadlift again." They told me I can't do
it. It's
it.
like a victim mindset.
Yeah,
and not to like throw them under the bus either, but because there's lots of things that goes into someone believing that. But yeah, they can say, "Oh, it's what I got. Oh well, I guess I just can't do anymore."
Right.
And it's like, "Oh,
that's not true.
It's not true, and it's the easy way. It's the easy way out, but it's not healthy for them." And I mean, that's a big thing that we address with my patients. Like that's one of my most favorite things to do is because it is a hard conversation, and that's why I set my business up the way I set it up. Is that like I have all the time that I need with the patient. I give them at least an hour with every time I see someone, and I would see one person per hour. I don't share patients with anybody.
Yep.
In the past, I would see at least 2 people per hour, sometimes more, and I was just distracted, have to share. But because that what you just said, that's the conversation that you have to have with people, and that takes time.
Yeah.
And you have to like commit to be like their therapist and be with them so you can develop this trust.
Yep.
And so my business, we're all about developing that trust because you have to help them understand and look at themselves differently, look at their injury differently. You have to help them understand the stuff they've been told in the past may not be the best information. They may be given wrong information because of Dr. Google or because of well-meaning healthcare practitioners that just have never seen it done a different way. And so having to have that conversation with people and trying to convince them that you actually can be active. I know you hurt your back deadlifting, but man, guess what? Deadlifting is the exact thing that's going to help you get through this because that's the best way to build your strength. And I know you have a MRI that says you have an L4-5 disc bulge, but guess what? You probably had that for the past 10 years. You know, you're okay. Let's get through this. But that takes time, and we have to approach that with respect and understand that's a process where that patient has to trust us. And yeah, it's something I love doing, but it is hard. But that's what I love doing with our people.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions that you see? So I'll throw one out.
Yep.
Deadlifting is bad.
Yep.
Yeah. So what are some that you hear often?
Well, I mean, let's go back to what you said earlier. Squatting is bad for your knees. Deadlifting is bad for your back. And I've had patients that are told if they've injured their back, like, don't ever bend over at the waist. I'm like,
good luck.
You've got to take your trash out. You're going to pick up groceries. Like, you just have to live life. And I have people who are told, well, I was told never touch my feet again. I'm like, what about putting your socks on or shoes or sitting on the dang toilet? I mean, come on, you're going to be bending your spine. So, the fact that, bending it over is bad for your back. Rounding your back is bad for your back. If you have a disc bulge, you should never, ever do that. That's a big misconception. Yeah. That deadlift, squats, putting any bar on your shoulders, or putting weights overhead is bad for your spine. Yeah. Can those things cause pain? Yes. Or can you injure yourself doing that? Yes. I've injured myself doing all that stuff. Yeah. But it wasn't the problem. It wasn't the fact that I bent over was the problem. It had other things going on that led to it. But yeah, squatting, deadlifting is bad for your back, and if you have disc bulges or arthritis in your spine, that's bad for you, and that's just wrong. Yeah, that's a major one. Yeah, squatting, having your knee go over your toe. That was something I came out of school thinking I was on the total bandwagon. Don't let your knee go over your toe because I'd been fed misinformation, and then that started being challenged. I was like, oh, start looking at the research, and you realize that's actually good for you. That's a normal movement to occur. Yeah. Do we need to be smart and intelligent about how we do that and how we load someone in that? Of course. Do I need to be smart and intelligent about how I load someone with deadlifting and squatting? Of course. But every one of my patients is doing that to work them back to it. Running, bad for your knees, bullcrap. Right? There's studies that show that people who are a moderate amount of running have healthier knees than people who don't run. They have ultramarathoners, people who show that they have just as much as a normal amount of arthritis as people who sit on their butt and do nothing. Like, it's good for you. Movement is good for you.
Yeah, I'd actually say, like, in my experience, the opposite is true. The people who deadlift the most are the most injury resistant. The people who squat the most and let their knee go over their toe because they have good ankle mobility and hip mobility.
Yes.
They're least likely to get injured. The people who run with good technique and do it a lot, they have great knees, So it's
people who are active take care of themselves, and that's a big thing we do with our runners. And research shows that those who strength train, not just do simple bodyweight exercises, but people who really get into resistance-based training, they improve their performance, they improve their ability to just handle the running demands better, and they can research suggests that you definitely can reduce your risk of injury if you are doing resistance exercises, you're lifting weights. I've had so many patients since I started my business 3 years ago, that's the vast majority of my patients are people who are active. Whereas the past decade before that, I had a lot of people who were not active, were not motivated, who sat a lot. And I've had more people in the past 3 years say, I used to have back issues, but then I was out in a gym and I started deadlifting and learning how to do it correctly, and my back stuff went away. I'm like, hell yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Because that's the number one exercise. If we look at some core muscles in your lower back, the number one exercise to help strengthen those cores, deadlifts.
Yeah.
Not ab crunches. I still love bridges and bird dogs as a good starter that we do for people, but like it's deadlifts. That's what really strengthens people's backs.
Yeah.
And doing heavy resistance. So,
well, and that kind of made me think of, I think another roadblock that the system sees is, I think because so many people are inactive, and unfortunately because the fitness industry has kind of told a lie that like this is a journey that you can or should do on your own.
Yeah.
As a doctor, or if I was a doctor and someone was like, I think I might also tell someone like, don't go deadlift because you don't know how.
Yes. No, and I think it's a great point. And I think a lot of my men and women that I've worked with, physicians, I think that's where they have to go that direction because they're trying to maybe scare people in a way of not doing it wrong.
Right.
Or they know they might injure themselves and they've seen it go wrong. And I think they take the least common denominator approach of, well, no one should be deadlifting because you might be doing it wrong. You're going to hurt yourself. And I think that if I talk to them one-on-one, I'm like, hey, come on, I've got this athlete. We know what we're doing. And they'll be like, yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
Yeah. So like the rule statement should be like, work with people who know what they're doing that can help you maximize your health and fitness and performance, right?
Yes, 100%. We'll teach you how to do it correctly.
Right.
That's something our businesses, I think, been doing more lately is we've had some patients who are older in their 60s, 70s, and seen some just awesome results with people who've had prior back surgeries and nerve ablations and knee replacements, and them coming to us and they're saying, well, I'm scared to squat or I'm scared to lift. I'm like, I get that. We respect that fear, but guess what? I'm going to walk you through that and show you how to do it safely.
Yeah.
And then walking them through that and progressing them from doing a 15-pound kettlebell to now, like I said, my mom's 135 and she'll be at a 70-pound here sometime soon. I told my dad, you're going to be deadlifting 150 here soon.
Yeah.
And then see them actually moving and feeling strong and healthy in it when they used to be scared out of their minds doing it. Man, it's been so neat to see and to really work everyone towards like that mindset of let's be healthy for a lifetime and let's really learn how to do it correctly. But once you learn how to do it correctly, man, let's load that up.
Yeah.
Let's get strong.
And I think that also takes into account something that we don't talk about a lot, which is the psychological healing process that has to occur. And, that person who's felt pain before and is like scared to death of it, because low back pain sucks. It like screws your entire life up.
And if it shoots into your leg and it scares you.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah.
And so but when you start like inching forward in that progress and kind of start going like, oh man, like I can do this. And you start seeing, we've both seen people who haven't started kind of the fitness process till later in life, 50s, 60s or whatnot, and just see them kind of do things that they never thought they could do. Oh my gosh, I just deadlifted blah, blah, blah. Or, oh my gosh, I just did 10 push-ups.
Yeah.
Or,
I was able to run 2 miles and I thought that was bad for my knees.
Yeah. And they're like, man, that momentum just like starts carrying them forward. And it's cool to see. It's cool to see the kind of like their objective physical changes, but also really cool to see their mindset shift. And that carries over to every area of their life. They're now able to experience new things. They're going and doing activities and experiencing life in a way that they hadn't been able to.
Or they thought they were done with.
Yeah.
I've had people say, I'm just done golfing because my surgeon told me never to twist again. And I'm like, oh, guess what? We're going to get you back golfing. That's our goal.
Yeah.
And they get to get back to it.
That's awesome. So we kind of talked a little bit about kind of the mindset shift or the difference between the system and kind of how it is not necessarily set up to help people get back to high level of function. But there's also the other side of it, which is people who are experienced athletes and do have a high level of function. And sometimes they are their own worst enemies when it comes to injury prevention, injury rehab. And so we see things like, oh, something kind of hurts, but I'll just push through it.
Right.
Or just taking a few days off and then just going right back into kind of what they were doing before. So talk a little bit about kind of your approach to dealing with higher level athletes and some of the mistakes that they make and how you help them get to better performance.
I think that one of the mistakes they make is this pain that I'm having is just part of it. Yeah. And I'm going to deal with it. And if I do ever get serious or it's bad enough, I need to go talk to someone. They don't want to go do it because, like everything we just said, they're scared. They're going to be told, "You just got to stop." Yeah. Or you're just going to tell me to stop, but this is what I love. This is what I'm passionate about. So you know what? Screw that. I'll just deal with the pain. Yeah. And so they make the assumption that it's just normal to be in pain, and they make the assumption, well, I just got to get an MRI, X-ray, tell me what it is, and so then I know. I'm like, no, that's just such a small part of it. So that's one assumption. What I love to tell people is this pain that you've always had for a long time, or this issue you've had, this limitation, this tightness, you think that it's never going to go away or it's just a part of it, but that's just oftentimes, not every time, but oftentimes that's just wrong. Yeah. And so we have to really talk with our high-level athletes about forming a plan and saying, you have tried it this way for a long time and you keep getting the same results, right? That's the definition of insanity. I think I've heard it says you keep doing the same thing and expect different results. Yeah. That's one of the things we tell athletes. Like, you've been foam rolling this till you're blue in the face. You've been, just waiting 2 days till the pain goes down enough where you can kind of get back to it. And you get back to it hoping it'll be different this time, or you go to bed at night thinking, man, maybe this will be the night I'll sleep through the night. Yeah. And like, no, it's, just keep taking Advil, Yeah. And so we have to tell them, that's where we'd kind of mentioned earlier, you have to go back through their story. I have an athlete right now with some hip issues, and we have to go back to their story 10 years ago when they first started having a back injury in high school, and how that back pain in high school is what led to this pattern of tension in their lower back, which they just thought was normal because that's what high-level athletes have as a high-level soccer player. But that's what started to lead to compensations. Then your hip flexors tighten up, which everybody tells me about. And I'm like, well, yeah, that tightened up because of this old back injury. And if we don't deal with the fact you can't bend backwards whatsoever, then we're never going to get your current hip issue better. So we have to go back to the original a little bit and look at those patterns that have been there for a while and helping them understand, like, that pain you've always had, there's a reason why I got there in the first place. Let's get back into the real issue, start to address it, but we have to form a plan around how to be smart about it. And that's this is what is so tough, because if you're a high-level athlete, you don't want to lose the momentum that you've built. You don't want to lose the strength, the speed, whatever it might be. I'm not a high-level athlete at all, but I had a back injury not too long ago from doing some deadlifting and some snatching that I was doing, and I was starting to PR. I'm like, this is awesome. Hell yeah, this is great. And then I injured myself. I was like, dang it, no. And I was like, let me see if I can't, let me just keep going. Let me just keep going, I'll be fine. But then I just kept ignoring it. And in my language, we call this red, yellow, green light system. I was like, it'll be fine. This is just a yellow light. Yeah. But it was like red light staring me in the face. And I kept trying to do it. And eventually it was pain with every step, pain with every movement. And I had to pause, reset a little bit, deal with the original issues, and then get back. But that's a hard thing to do when you're a high-level athlete. Sometimes it does take time to back away from the intensity, deal with the real stuff, and then get back into it. And this is my conversation I have with athletes all the time, and I had to have myself. Yes, this is my immediate goal, and I know that you've built up a lot of strength and endurance, whatever it might be. But my goal is to keep you doing this for your life, not just for this next 2 months. And maybe we can patchwork some stuff so you can get through this one competition or whatever. Okay, that's fine. But, man, there's going to be a time, if you really want to deal with this, that we're going to have to take a step back, not to like completely put you on the sidelines and do nothing. An active recovery is always better than a passive recovery. But we're going to have to modify things a little bit. So let's deadlift to some plates. Let's not go down too far. Let's do a box squat. Let's still load you up with, some heavy weights on your back, but let's modify a little bit. Or let's do some belt squats instead of loading you with a front squat, whatever. We just do some modifications, or with a runner. Let's figure out some other things that we can do. Let's add some more walking involved a little bit. Let's do some other cross training. Let's do some freaking strengthening so that we can deal with these original issues, take some time away from it, and then start to bring you back into your high level. So then hopefully you even go past that. Yeah. And you go past it feeling even stronger and healthier. And guess what? You're going to probably tweak things again, but now you know what to do to listen for that, so that this pain you've been ignoring this whole time, next time it starts to come back, you nip it in the bud from the beginning, and you have a plan around it so it doesn't sideline you like it might be doing right now.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to like what you were talking about building trust and something when we had Larry, who's also one of y'all's clients, Tolbert, on, he was talking about like, building a team around himself.
Yeah.
And, so like, when we do nutrition, consults with people, a lot of times they may be doing something they know they're not supposed to be doing. So let's just use the example of they're eating ice cream every night, right?
Yep, having a bourbon. That's,
Oh, man.
That's good for you, but
that's
not too good.
But good for your heart, right? So, but let's say they're eating ice cream every night, and then they'll recognize like, this is probably not what I need to be doing.
Yep.
And then their suggestion is always the wrong answer as well, because they're like, I know I'm not supposed to be eating ice cream. I'll just stop eating ice cream altogether. I'm like, well, okay. You know, like, is that reality? No, it's probably somewhere in the middle. And kind of same thing with recovering from injuries.
100%. That's a very good point.
Athletes are scared because like I love training. I don't want to stop training. It's like, look, we're going to train. Like, we're going to keep moving forward.
Yes.
It's just what adaptations do we make? So it might be like, man, my knees are kind of bothering me,
Yes.
But like I'm on this squat cycle, I'm feeling good. It's like, hey, well, can we modify it with like a box squat?
Yeah. Can
we do something? Can we maybe like lay off the lunges and do a step up instead? Like there's things we can do 100%. And say like, let's address this issue that we're having. And instead of like if we're going down this road, instead of like coming up to a stop sign and just being stuck there, having to go backwards, let's just kind of go take a right, keep moving forward and figure out a different kind of path forward. But I think it takes trust and building a relationship with someone and hearing it, and being exposed to kind of that mentality that may be different from what you're used to in the past, which would be, stop. Oh my gosh, just stop.
Yeah, stop sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's 100% correct. That's the problem with the medical system. It's a stop sign.
Yeah.
And you have to. Stop signs don't work for high-level athletes. They say, well, screw that. I'm going to blow right through it. And if that's my option, let's just go through it.
Yeah,
we're going to run through it.
Yeah, let's do it.
So we have to teach people, like, I know it's what you've been told, and I know that you think that this injury you've been told based on MRI or whatever, it's a stop sign. No, there's just so many things you can do. I mean, active recovery is better than a passive recovery. Movement is medicine.
Yep.
We're going to figure out another way to address the root issues, but still keep you active as much as possible. And I have times where I have an athlete that I'm like, all right, yes, you need to sit on your butt for the next week. But that's it. Okay, if you want to do some upper body stuff, knock yourself out. But there are times we're going to have a stop sign, but I'm going to keep that stop sign as short as possible because I don't want other bad patterns to set in.
Yeah.
But no, how can we do workarounds? And I love what you said about, like with Larry, like, because I would do the same thing myself as in a nutritional, like, oh, this is probably the right idea, but I have no clue what I'm doing. And I need someone to come in and say, here is a better way you've never thought of it before. Let me really train you and show you how to do it correctly. And then that's when the light bulb goes off. I'm like, so I can do it that way. Okay, that makes sense. And yeah, that's I've never thought about it that way, but that's what happens with our patients.
Yeah, we kind of said like the all or nothing approach is usually going to lead to nothing. So let's find a different approach, right?
Man, particularly with high level athletes, if you just ignore and think all, you're
eventually going to, either way, you're going to nothing eventually. And when you were talking about, like, sometimes you do have to hit a stop sign and that athlete, like, hey, you're going to have to take a week off. That made me think, like, you had said earlier about, like, talking to someone about what their schedule's like, what their recovery's like, what their sleep's like. Right. And a lot of times we're just pushing in every area of our life. And at some point, something breaks, right? The body breaks. And it's like, hey, man, like, you're going to have to step back on some level here because you're running at 100 miles an hour with no brakes on, right? What are some other things you see from high-level athletes that they could be doing better to prevent injury or improve performance?
Great question. I'm learning more and more about, recovery, and that being a broad category of nutrition, of sleep, water intake. So I think someone particularly who I've dealt with, who've had chronic issues, that's when we really have to start to break this out. That, hey, you keep injuring yourself. How much are you sleeping at night? Are you going? So that's one thing that I'm learning more and more about and starting to recommend more people to nutritionists. I've sent some people to some functional medicine physicians, like, hey, we really need to dial in on other things here that it's not just your orthopedic system, if you will. It's what you do during the day. It's like having a habit of movement. So like I have a lot of athletes who want to be a high level runner or a high level lifter, but they sit on their butt all day in front of a computer or on their phone. And it's like, if you want to ask your body to perform for this hour and a half, 2 hours, 30 minutes, whatever it is, a CrossFit class for 1 hour, but you're sitting on your butt all day long. You can get to the gym 10 minutes early and do some foam rolling to your mid back and your hips. But if you're sitting on your butt, it's slouched over, no amount of recovery exercises that you're going to do will fix that.
Yeah.
So really talking to my athletes we have to adopt a whole mentality here of movement. And that's when I get into the weeds. People are like, let's talk about your desk setup. Can we get a stand-up desk? Can you move around? Like, I don't need you standing all the time, but do something, just move around. So I think that's something that is a missing link for people is they have an area of tightness that's never going to go away if you don't stay moving throughout the day.
If you spend 3/4 of your day in this one position,
yes.
you're just not going to be able to accumulate enough recovery movements or rehab movements to overcome that.
Yeah, and you see me once, twice a week. Yeah, good luck. I'm not going to change that. And your body has this, old patterns die hard and has a muscle memory. And like your system is used to doing it this way. So if we're going to change this, we've got to change your system, not just this one muscle.
Yeah.
Like people all the time, let's just, dry needle this one spot or let's stretch this one spot. I'm like, that's great. But if you're going to go sit in front of your phone or while I'm talking to them and we're looking at something on their phone, they go back in these bad positions. I'm like, this is like everything we just did is going to come undone, particularly if you're doing this all day long.
That was kind of my analogy with chiropractic care. Like, look, I like chiropractic care, but understand like bones don't move themselves. If a bone's out of position, something pulled it out of position, right? Like something subluxed. So you can't just go get put back in place without dealing with what's causing that to happen in the first place. Yeah.
And that's a big thing for athletes is helping them understand, like helping them empower them to take more responsibility and ownership of their thing and say, yes, you can see a chiropractor that can be helpful. That's awesome. Love that. We can see me, we can do techniques, but you've got to really adopt, understand. That's why I love taking the time and when I say get into the weeds with people. Yeah. Help them understand this is what's going on and this is what's going to take to fix this. I ain't going to give you one exercise. You can't take one pill. You can't go get just one surgery and expect that's going to change this long-standing problem. We have to really get our heads wrapped around the full picture and change that whole thing. Yeah. Sometimes.
Yeah. If you're looking for the one thing, it doesn't exist.
That's another problem with our healthcare system and that we're all guilty of. It's, instant gratification. Yeah. And you just, when it comes to the body, that's just rarely the case, particularly with chronic issues. It's just never the case with chronic issues. You have to have a plan. You have to be committed to it. And that's a big thing we have to work on with our people.
Yeah. And I think there's a bit of perspective that has to occur in order that has to occur to understand that. And I think I started working out when I was in 6th, 7th grade. So I'm 25 years of training now. And it's now looking back, I'm like, I did some really stupid stuff back then. But at the time, if someone had told me different, I would not have. I'm like, whatever. What do you know, right? Right. But sometimes when we're working with people, they may not have been doing it for that long. They don't have that perspective yet. Maybe they're in their first year. Maybe they're 5 years in and they really kind of found this one thing that they're really, really good at. And they've been kicking ass and they started running. And I'm putting up some really great numbers in my 5Ks or started doing my first marathon or started to accumulate some 100-mile races. And it's but you're still relatively new into this stuff you're doing with your body. And it's they don't have that perspective, that long-term perspective. What's this look like for the lifetime?
Yeah. And that's a conversation we have a lot with our athletes of, particularly if you're new, it takes time when you start to load heavy and load for endurance, your body has to adapt to that. And my belief is that the body is amazing and strong and resilient, and you can put it under a load and progressive load and it will adapt. So you have to give it the opportunity to allow your tendons to adapt to this type of pull, to that type of spring. You have to allow your discs, your joints, your muscles, they take time to adapt. And if you're new at it, that's another common issue we see is, you're too impatient. Yeah. You have to see the whole goal, which is a long-term plan here, not just a 6-month plan. And I think the medical system is we don't see the value in taking time to allow the body to adapt and to grow and to put it under a progressive loading program and allow it to do its thing.
Well, and the fitness industry is equally as guilty because everything's like 6 week, rapid body change, or add an inch to your arms, or put 100 pounds on your squat, and you're like, well, whatever you do over the next 6 weeks is relatively irrelevant compared to what you do over the next 60 years.
Yeah.
Or the next six years or 6 months. It's like it's
be sustainable.
It's sustaining it and maintaining it. And I think again, like having that perspective of I've been doing it for a long time. You kind of like recognize like that compounding effect, and the sustainability that comes with like doing it the right way over a long period of time. I have a funny story for you. So I have an intern, and we were talking about warm ups, and I ask him always like, "What's the definition of a warm up?" And my definition is it's a period designed to bridge the gap between periods of low activity to higher activity, and so that like bridge has to be relevant to the gap that must be crossed. And so we were going over squat technique, and I put him through a warm-up. He's 21, I think, 22, something like that. And put him through a warm-up, and I said, well, how'd that feel? He's like, man, that felt really good. I've never warmed up before.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, it's like, when you're 20, 21, like you don't necessarily think and have that perspective of warming up. It was like he was like, oh man, that felt great. Like I've never warmed up before. I was like, you've never warmed up before.
He's cool at 21. Wait till he's my age at 39, and you have to prep the system.
Exactly. That's my point. It's like you just can't get away with that for that much longer. But if that's like the way you start off,
and you think it's fine, it'll keep working for you. But
and then eventually you kind of like, man, like my shoulders kind of bothering me, my knees kind of hurt today. Well, maybe I'll wrap it, throw some Bengay on it, figure out a way to like push through this workout, and then eventually you just go, my knees hurt and I can't squat anymore. That's not the case. You just spent 20 years not warming up.
Yes. No, that was over COVID. I started just working out in my gym more, and that's really when I was doing this kind of Olympic lifting program for snatches, and I was doing a whole lot of deep squats that I've never done before, and I started having some aches and pains that I'm like, well, this is different. And a traditional thing would say, oh, you're getting old, squats are bad for your knees. No, BS. I just did not prep my body for that, and I started hot and heavy over a 6-week program, and I could have gone a little bit less, and so I had to take a step back. But every time I would warm up, I'd hold to like a TRX band and do some like deep squats, and those first 5 or 6, like, ooh, it's a little bit stiff. But because my mindset was, but that's okay. My body's strong and resilient. This is awesome. Like this stress and kind of soreness I'm feeling, that's exactly what's going to make this stronger. Not, oh no, I've got bad knees. I must have torn my meniscus. Stop, scary. No, like it was my mindset that said, nope, this is good for it. Be smart about it, but warm into it. And then let's load this thing up. Let's get heavy with it, but then be smart with my recovery. But same thing for runners. I have to tell them all the time, what do you do before you start running? Walk out the door. You got to warm your system up. That's a big thing for sure.
The like having that knowledge, kind of knowing, okay, the self-awareness of, okay, this is what I'm need to perform today, and like this kind of going through that checklist, like, how does my body feel? I'm not quite there yet. I need a little bit more today. And kind of getting yourself there. But and I think that's where, if you don't have that perspective, you don't have that that knowledge, if you're new to it, you do one of two things, like I'll push through it, or you just go, I'm not going to do it at all. And that's where having someone you trust, having a coach, having a guide to kind of be like, how you feel today? Man, I'm feeling kind of like this. Okay, well, let's do this instead. Let's modify it, because like we're going to keep going. All or nothing is not the only two options. Let's keep moving forward. So
I think that's a huge perspective in PT when we're working with people who are in pain and they're scared and they're having this pain, and we have to do it. It's a lot of coaching of them, of saying, where are you at? It's not an all or none approach. Just because you're still in pain doesn't mean that things are still bad. Let's take a look at how it's been over the past 24 hours. Let's learn what that's telling you. Let's learn what it's not telling you, and how to keep moving forward, how to keep progressing, and how to use, again, movement as medicine. Not be scared that you're going to just always be like this, or you're just going to keep hurting yourself. Like, no, we have to have a plan, and helping people understand that from the beginning is really key with athletes.
Big time.
Who have that all or none approach, and who are scared that, for lots of those different reasons we've talked about.
Well, very cool, Clay. Appreciate you coming on. Why don't you kind of like let people know where they can get in contact with
Yeah.
you and where they can find you?
Yeah. So www.901pt.com is our website. We're on Instagram at 901pt. Facebook is 901 Physical Therapy. I think my wife is trying to get us to do a TikTok account. I don't know. So we might have that. She wants me to do some dance videos or something. But yeah, so those are ways you can get in touch with us. If you send a message through Instagram or our website, I'll look at all of those things. If you have questions, send me a message on that. You can look me up on Instagram as Clay Jones PT. I think that's what that is. But yeah, that's where we're at. And our location is on Broad Avenue. Been there for a year. It's been awesome. We're right next to the liquor store. It's a wonderful restaurant if you haven't tried that out. So that's where we're at. Yeah, our phone number, 901-310-3901.
Awesome. Very cool. All right, Clay, thanks for coming on, bud.
Thanks, man.
All right, y'all be good. Out.
Thank you for listening to NBS Fitness Radio. If you enjoyed the podcast, be sure to share it with your friends, follow us on social media, and check out our website at www.nbsfitness.net. Hit the subscribe button and tune in next time for more NBS Fitness Radio.